Hey guys, you're back with Juzzy Evo X, and today we're talking about the Dodson heated sump, which is an aftermarket part which you purchase for your SST transmission to assist you to get higher temperatures quicker, so that you don't end up slipping the clutches in your car. What we're looking at here is the actual stock pan for the SST. This actual pan is shallow in depth, has no provision for the inlet and outlet of hoses which can run to the radiator, and so therefore all its purpose is just simply to act as a cover, just like any other gearbox normally would. The SST transmission sits right here, right on the side of the gearbox, and the pan sits on the front down there. So just going to get closer here to show you what the SST heated sump looks like. As you can see, it's heavily finned to assist with dispersion of heat, and also it acts to trap some of the air that comes through from the front of the car. The heated sump doesn't require any modification to the box, or any modification at all. You can buy it with or without hoses to connect out of the actual sump itself. And if you look very closely, just down there is a wire which comes out of the side of the actual transmission itself, and what that is the optional base temp reader, which is a fancy word for a device which simply just measures the temperature that the box is operating, or actually the oil is operating in itself. So that wire runs from the engine bay through the firewall and into the cigarette socket lighter where the car is, and I'll just quickly go around to show you how that works. Okay guys, so we're now inside the car and we're having a look at the cigarette lighter area, and as you can see there's the SST shifter. So when you buy the base temp reader, it comes as a device like this which simply plugs into the cigarette lighter, and in mine I'm actually running a sort of a double adapter, if you like, and the reason for that is because this plug here is used to control my Varex muffler, which is an electronic butterfly valved muffler, so I can go quiet or loud when I need it. So say for example, if I'm starting the car early in the morning and I don't want to disrupt neighbours, or if I'm driving past you know who and I need to go into stealth mode, then so be it. So the way this works is that it doesn't draw any power, of course, when it's off. You don't need to see what the temperature is when the car's off, but when you put the car to accessories, it starts getting power just like your radio does. And what it does is it only serves one purpose. There's no adjustability, there's no buttons to press to change anything. This simply just reads in degrees Celsius, as you can see here. I'm not quite sure if there's a Fahrenheit version for countries like America, but here in Australia I'm used to degrees Celsius, and the only thing that I do not like about this unit is that, and it's the case with all of them apparently, the decimal point is in the wrong place. So this is actually 24 degrees at the moment. I've only run the car very briefly to move it about in the garage before I shot this video. But the way it works is that immediately on the fly it tells you what your temperature is, so you don't have to worry about looking at vague apps like Torque Pro. This is a excellent and immediate way of gauging what temperature the box is running at. So you might be asking, why do I actually need to know what temperature the box is running at? So if you're not quite sure, what happens is when the gearbox is cold, the clutches in the car can't operate as effectively as they need to. You need to get the gearbox temperature up to, at the very least, around 65 degrees, but preferably more around a 70 to 80 degrees temperature region. That's Celsius, degrees Celsius. Before you start beating on the car and just driving fast in general. If you don't, and you are running in particular more power than stock, then it's quite likely that your clutches will start slipping. even if you start the car and you hold this up the 2 times to get it into the SST mode. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start the car up. Now, whether you want to start it up by changing this mode, or you do it when you start, either's fine. But if I just hold that button down there, you'll see it changes to sport. And if I hold the button again, it goes to super sport. Now, you can start the car now. So now the car's started, and you'll see down here that it says 2.3. It's actually 23 degrees Celsius. So we've checked with Dodson. It is an actual known discrepancy. It's not an issue, because you just simply look at it and you say, okay, the box is running at 24 degrees. It's no problem. So if I just give that a couple of revs here, as you can see, it's just changed to 25 degrees. So it does take a little bit of time to warm up. It's not like you can just put a Dodson Sump into your car and you can just start racing straight away from a dead cold. You simply cannot do that. You need to build up oil pressure and oil temperature for the engine and the box. And normally, if you're just running the standard cover on the gearbox, what would normally happen is it would take about 25 to 30 minutes to get that box up to temperature. And most of the time, people don't drive that far in most of their driving trips. And so you might want to go fast for whatever reason that is, whether it's to overtake someone, or you're out wanting to have a race, or you're at a track day, or you're staging in the lanes at a quarter-mile track, and you've got your car off and the SST is not at operating temperature, so you've got no hope. You go to start and you launch, and your clutches will be slipping like crazy. So with these SST cars, they're quite sensitive to the temperature of the box. You need to have the SST. Ideally, I don't like to drive the car hard until I've got it at 71 degrees or more. That's what I like to do. Ideally, I prefer it's at 75. So you might be waiting about 25 to 30 minutes for that if you do not have an SST heated sump. But when you do have the heated sump, that can be as quick as 10 minutes. So you drastically halve that time that it takes for the box to come up to temperature. Now that will vary depending on where you are in the world. If you're in a hotter climate, of course it's going to help. If you're in a colder climate, it's going to take a slight bit longer time for that to heat up. But I'm just going to go back to the engine bay now and explain how it manages to get up to heat a lot quicker than the stock item. Alright guys, so we're back at the engine bay, and I'm just going to talk about how the actual heated sump manages to get up to temperature quicker than the actual stock item. So on the lower half of the actual heated sump, you'll see down the bottom here that thickness there is actually a chamber in the heated sump. So heated sump's divided into 2 areas, and that lower part there is used to cycle water. So the actual hose fittings that go to and from this side of the lower portion of the heated sump, they go to the radiator, and they enable water from the radiator to cycle from the radiator through the heated sump, so that the oil in the sump comes up to heat quicker. Because if you don't have that heated sump, then you're of course going to be waiting quite a long time for it to naturally heat up on its own. That's why it takes 25-30 minutes to heat up. So you then rely on the car's cooling system. So the thermostat on the car controls the fan cycling on, and it usually cycles somewhere around 85 degrees Celsius, and that regulates temperature, and that helps to regulate temperature in the box as well. So it brings up temperature quicker, but it also helps to regulate temperature when it does get hotter. When it gets too hot, then yes, it's out of its means, and you need to look at aftermarket means for the oil cooler, which sits down in front of the wheel and tyre on this side, whether that be by changing to an aftermarket oil cooler, or you put a thermo fan or in some cases you put 2 oil coolers there in some sort of a V-mount setup. So that's the heated sump. I got mine. How I came to got mine was because approximately December 2018, I was driving along, and all of a sudden I could not change into second gear, and so of course I had the dreaded shift fork magnet issue, where what that means is the box could not tell that it was in second gear. It could not engage second gear because the magnet was not where it was supposed to be. And so if you ever come into that sort of issue, I highly recommend that you stop the car immediately and you get the car towed home, or most importantly towed to the repair shop so that they can drop the box and check out what's gone wrong. I'll put some photos up at the end of this video just showing what happened in my case. So essentially the shift fork for 2 and 4 had become loose. It had not dislodged, so I was fine. I stopped the car immediately and got it towed into AK Racing. They pulled the box apart, and Alan was very good in explaining to me what had actually occurred. I upgraded to a Dodson shift fork, which eliminates the issue of having a glue or a sealant which is used for the shift fork magnet to come apart. That doesn't occur with the Dodson shift fork. And when my box was taken apart, I also had springs loose on the torque dampener, which they were able to locate easily. And so that's what is the cause of a lot of rattling that you might hear in your engine bay. You might hear it towards the front of the car. You might look around, you might not notice where the actual rattle's from. It's actually from the actual torque dampener itself, whether it be that there's a spring that's dislodged and so there's a rattle. But it can also be that the tooth on the revision 1 of the torque dampener wheel, they changed it to stop any sorts of vibrations or rattling occurring at a slightly later stage. So I've got the revision 2 torque dampener in there as a part of the OEM clutch basket. So there's a basket that holds the torque dampener and the clutches in it. You cannot buy the torque dampener separately, so if you do want to look at the option of going for an aftermarket set of clutches, you do have to actually get that torque dampener. So if you're dealing with a big name SSD clutch company, or at least a repair shop, then they'll have access to those torque dampeners. So you might be asking, when do you actually need to change to a different sort of clutch? Well, I was advised by AK Racing that the stock clutches are good for up to 300 kilowatts, but at 300 kilowatts you really are starting to push it. So my car produces 282 kilowatts in the middle of summer, and it is never going to run more power than that. I don't want to run more boost than that, and I don't want the car to have such a laggy setup where it's not going to be effective for me at Motorcana. Motorcana is just another name that we call it in Australia for time trials, or you might call it for short courses. I don't intend to do any circuit work in this car. I just want to compete against myself, so that I don't have any issues with other drivers, and that I just better improve my ability to drive. And I think that's the way I'd like to go with this car. So that's what I'm going to start doing now that the box has been fully repaired. I hope that you found this video informative, the reasons why you'd need to actually get the sump, how temperature monitoring works. If you don't have the base temp reader going into the inside of your car, you can try and use an app like Torque Pro. As of 2020, which it is today, Happy New Year everyone, there's been some issues with people trying to get that to run. There is a workaround for it, but all in all, it's not going to be as efficient as using a direct temperature reader from the box itself. So they run somewhere around $200, I think, and I think that the heated sump installed is probably somewhere around $2,200-$2,500 with the base temp meter. You know, you would need to have new gearbox oil. At the time the box is apart, you may as well put in a new internal filter and also swap out the external filter as well. So there's lots to consider, and there's no simple answer as a rough guide for what the price is, because everyone's circumstances will change. When the box is apart, they need to consider things like what's the condition of the mech, mechatronic, which is the electronic unit for the SST. Is the torque dampener okay? Are the clutches okay? Are there Welsh plugs that are on the mech which have worn, which one of mine had in my case, or any other issues which could possibly exist. And so therefore, it's hard to actually talk to a person and get a good idea of what things cost, because no one can tell what the condition of your box is unless it's apart and it's on the bench, you've got the covers apart, and you're actually looking at it in person. So yes, I hope you found this informative. I've had really great service from AK Racing. Shout out to Alan and Keith. And yeah, if you've got any comments or you'd like to have a further look at the actual parts themselves, you can have a look at www.akracing.com.au. You can have a look at the Dodson website itself. Dodson operates out of New Zealand. They're a New Zealand company. They make great products, world-class, high-quality products, and I'm happy to have them in my car. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. I hope that you like, comment, and subscribe. Have a good day.
Alright, so I've split the box open for you now, Justin. That's what it all looks like. So these are the 3 magnets, and then that's the 4th one down there. And see how this one's all wobbly, the magnets come loose. See this one, it's rigid as, that's what your issue is.